What's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with FTN Bets on the FTN Network, bringing you the first look at Week 14 NFL lines. We have a lot of games to get into, and I don't want this video to run too long, so let's get right into it. So let's start with the Thursday night game here. Got the New England Patriots taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Patriots are 6-6, 6-6 against the spread, 4-8 to the over, and are coming off a 45-0 beatdown of the Los Angeles Chargers. They did it at plus money last week, which is something we talked about, which was a nice little win for us there. The Rams on the other side of this game are 8-4, 7-5 against the spread, 4-8 to the over, and are coming off a nice win against the Arizona Cardinals, 38-28 here. So my number on this game is the Los Angeles Rams minus 4.5. Looking at what we're getting offered here, it just feels like it's a little bit too many points. You figure it's probably going to come down because you look at the Patriots on DraftKings and you see that minus 120 there. That minus 120 means that it's on its way to 6 or even 5.5. And like I said, I think there's about 2 points of value on the Patriots side. I don't want to take this bet right now because I do think the Rams are a good team. I am not a huge fan of the Patriots here. There is a little bit of value on the Patriots side, but you know what? We don't always have to take a bet when we see a little bit of value. 2 points is a decent number there, something I would consider if I like this game, but I really don't like this game. The next game we can talk about here, the Tennessee Titans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tennessee is 8-4, 5-7 against the spread, 9-2-1 to the over, which is actually the best mark in the league to the over. They're coming off a loss to Cleveland where they got absolutely blown out in the first half and then had a furious comeback in the second half to kind of make it close here. 41-35 was the final score of that game, but honestly, it really wasn't that close. It was basically Cleveland up by about 4 touchdowns most of the game and then a comeback at the end here by Tennessee. The other side of this game, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been playing pretty decently lately, even though it hasn't shown up in their win-loss record. They're 1-11 on the season, 6-6 against the spread, though, which is what I'm talking about here, and also 6-6 to the over. They're coming off a loss to Minnesota 27-24 in a game that they were actually up for the early part and most of the game, to be honest with you, before they wound up blowing that lead. Looking at my number here, I have Tennessee minus 12. So for me, I feel like there's a lot of value on Tennessee here at minus 6.5 on DraftKings. Yeah, it's juiced up a little bit at minus 120, but still, if you're getting under a field goal here, under a touchdown here, that's a number I'd be willing to take when I have 5 points of value based on my numbers on that side. I know Jacksonville has played better. They've been keeping some of these games closer. Mike Glennon, not a horrible quarterback. He's done pretty well since he's come in here. But with all that being said, I mean, again, I'm getting 5 points of value here. Tennessee is coming off a loss. They're probably going to be pissed off here. Not a huge home field advantage for Jacksonville. Again, at 6.5, I just feel like this number is way too low here. It's actually 7.5 on FanDuel, juiced down a little bit there, which means that the right number in this game is probably around a touchdown. So that's why I want to hop on Tennessee now. You can get Tennessee at under a touchdown. I think that's a good play to take. So let's move on and talk about the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears is the next game we got here. Texans, 4-8 record, 4-8 against the spread, 6-6 to the over. Coming off a loss to Indianapolis, 26-20, without Will Fuller, who was suspended last week for, I think it was PEDs, but don't quote me on that. The other side of this game, we have the Chicago Bears, 5-7. They are actually losers of their last 6 games, so they're obviously moving in the wrong direction after having some variance in their favor early in the season. 5-7 against the spread for the Bears, 5-7 to the over. They basically just blew a game to Detroit 31-30 last week. At one point during that game, they had a 95% win probability in the second half. So this is one of those games where they literally snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Looking at this number here, though, I got to be honest with you. I think there is some value on the home dog here in the Bears. I think that this number has moved a little bit too much. I have this game as a pick'em. And right now, the Bears, the home team, as a dog, you're getting a plus 110 money line, plus 2.5 on DraftKings. You're getting a plus 2 and a plus 116 money line on FanDuel. So whenever I have a team that's a pick'em, it's a coin flip. We're talking about getting plus 116 on a coin flip. The Bears are the side of this game that I want to be on. It doesn't feel good. You're going to have to hold your nose and take them. But, again, with me having at least 2 points of value here and this game being basically a coin flip, if you're going to give me plus 116 on a coin flip, I'm going to take that all day. Here's another interesting matchup in the NFC we can talk about. Minnesota Vikings, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Minnesota is 6-6, winners of 5 of their last 6 games. They are 6-6 against the spread. They are 9-3 to the over. Coming off a comeback win over Jacksonville. They did not cover in that game, and I think they missed the over in that game by half a point. Finished 27-24 for 51 total points, and the over-under in that game last week started at like 48.5, but got up to 51.5 by kickoff. So they ended at 51, just slightly under that number. So that is one of the reasons why they're 5-7 to the. 6-6 to the over, and not 7-5 to the over. The Bucs are coming off a bye last week, so they didn't have a game. They were sitting at 7-5 already, 6-6 against the spread, 7-5 to the over. I have this game as Tampa Bay on a neutral field being favored by 4. Tampa Bay is home, so you got to add about 1.5 points to that. And Tampa Bay is coming off a bye, so we add another point to that. That gets me to 6.5 as my number here. So looking at this game, I'm right on market. I think that 6.5 number is right where it should be. I expect the Bucs to win. Less than a touchdown is what you're being asked to lay with them. And that's exactly what my number is here. So I don't really have a bet on this one. Next game we can talk about, the Green Bay Packers against the Detroit Lions. Green Bay is 9-3 on the season, 8-4 against the spread, 7-5 to the over, coming off a win against Philadelphia 30-16 last week. Detroit moved up to 5-7, 4-7-1 against the spread, 7-5 to the over. And we just talked about them with that big comeback victory, the improbable comeback victory over the Chicago Bears last week, 31-30. When I break this number down, I get Green Bay with a number of -9.5. So here we do have about 2 points of value there. 1.5, 2 points of value, like 9.5 is probably around where this number is going to end up. It's kind of a number in no man's land, considering you're being asked to already lay 7.5 here, which is not something that I think is all that great. The best way to play this game, at least in my opinion, is probably tease the Packers down to 1.5. I do think the Packers are going to win this game. Like I said, I have a number of 9.5 here. 7.5 is just not a number that I really like to take because you're being asked to lay more than a touchdown here. Could get backdoored on something like this. I do think the Packers win. Like I said, my numbers are actually favoring the Packers. But at this number, again, I'm not at 10 yet, which would be kind of the next key number after 7. My number is a little bit below that. I do think there's value on the Packers side of it, but I don't know if I would play this game, straight up. Most likely the best way to play this game is as part of a teaser. Even though they're a road team, I think teasing the Packers down to 1.5 is definitely the way I'm going to go with this. And I really don't see any straight bet action here. Next game, we can talk about the Arizona Cardinals against the New York Giants. This is a very interesting game here to me. You have two teams that are kind of moving in the opposite directions here. Arizona struggling after coming off to a hot start. The Giants coming on really strong lately and surprising week after week after coming out of the gates looking really, really bad at the beginning of the season, losing Saquon Barkley. They even played without Daniel Jones last week, which is something we'll talk about here in a minute because we still don't know what his status is going to be for this week. Arizona is 6-6, 4-8 against the spread, 4-7-1 to the over, coming off a loss to the Los Angeles Rams, 38-28. Nothing to be ashamed of. The Rams are a very good team there. The Giants up to 5-7, leading the NFC East at the moment. They are 8-4 against the spread, though. So, like I said, this is a team that has been disrespected basically all season long here. 3-8-1 to the over is the Giants' record, and they are 3-8-1 is their record to the total to the over. They are coming off a win against Seattle. They won that game 17-12 with backup quarterback Colt McCoy in there. And this is why I said we have to talk about this, because with Colt McCoy as the starter, my number is basically exactly the same as FanDuel. I have a +3 number here with Colt McCoy as the starter. I do have Daniel Jones, though, being 3 points better than Colt McCoy. So if Daniel Jones does play, I would have this game as a pick'em right here. So how would I play the numbers that were being offered right now? The +116 is not crazy if Daniel Jones does play. The +3 at -115 on FanDuel is something else I think I would I would consider here at the moment. Again, I don't really want to take the Giants if Colt McCoy is going to be the quarterback. But if Daniel Jones is back, like I said, my numbers would have this game as a pick 'em right here if that's the case. So maybe a slight edge to Arizona, or actually it would be a slight edge to the Giants because they're home here. But we're talking like a quarter of a point or so. So it's basically a pick 'em. But again, until we get some news on Daniel Jones, I don't really know how I want to go here. 100% healthy Daniel Jones with the Giants being at home, I would have this as a pick 'em. The Cardinals would be favored by about 1.2 points or something like that on the road. I mean, on a neutral field. So then when you factor in a home field advantage, you're basically looking at like maybe Giants by like a quarter of a point or so. But again, until we have the Daniel Jones, Colt McCoy news, I don't really want to touch this game. Just throw it out there for you guys. If you want to make a bet on it beforehand and hope Daniel Jones plays, or if you have a strong feeling that he will, there's probably value on the Giants side of it if Daniel Jones is their quarterback. Next game up, New York Jets, my New York Jets against the Seattle Seahawks. The Jets are 13.5-point underdogs here, so a little bit less than 2 touchdowns. 0-12 on the season, 4-8 against the spread, 6-6 to the over. Coming off a loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, 31-28, where for some reason they decided to call an all-out blitz with no safety help and basically just let the Raiders throw a touchdown pass to win the game with about 5 seconds left. Inexplicable to me, unless the reason why they did it is they're just trying to tank to get the number 1 overall pick, which is obviously probably what they did because there's no other explanation for it. The other side of this game, Seattle, 8-4, 6-6 against the spread, 6-6 to the over, coming off a really bad loss to the New York Giants, 17-12. They have now lost 6 of their last 8 games against the spread right now. So Seattle started hot, and they are now moving in the opposite direction. So interesting to see how that works out. My number on this game is Seattle minus 15. Is there a little bit of value? Yes. Are you crossing the 14? Yes. Is it a number I really want to go and bet on? No, not really. If this number was 13 or 12.5 and I could tease it down through the 7 and the 10, I might be a little bit more interested in it. As it is at 13.5, teasing it down to 7.5, especially after watching the Seahawks lose to the Giants last week, who again, the Giants are playing better, but they're still not a team that I have up there as one of the better ones in the league. I don't know, man. It's just a lot of points here. Like I said, there is a little bit of value on the Seahawks side. I think this line should actually be 15 instead of 13.5, but I'm not going to be making a bet on it. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts and the Las Vegas Raiders. Indianapolis 8-4, 7-5 against the spread, 7-5 to the over, coming off a 26-20 win over Houston. The other side of this game, we're looking at the Raiders, 7-5, 7-5 against the spread, 8-3-1 to the over. We just talked about that ridiculous last second play that they got the long touchdown on to wind up beating the New York Jets here. But guys, this is not a good win. I mean, if it takes you a last second Hail Mary where the Jets basically allowed you to throw that pass to get the touchdown in order for you to win, you did not play very well. Now, remember, Josh Jacobs was out in that game. We don't know if he's going to be back or not. I'm filming this video Sunday night. We have no idea what's going to happen in practice this week, so definitely keep an eye on that. The number I have on this game, Indianapolis on a neutral field would probably be about a 3-point favorite, probably about a field goal favorite here. With this game being in Las Vegas, I actually have it down to like Indy like 1.5 or Indy -2. So is there a little bit of value on the Raiders side? I guess so. I do not want to bet on the Raiders. I definitely want to see what the Josh Jacob news is. If Josh Jacob is out, I would not want to touch the Raiders at all here. If Josh Jacob is in, I still don't know if this is a bet I really want to make. Like I said, we probably have maybe half a point to a point of value. Not enough for me to be willing to wager on. So next game we have the Atlanta Falcons and the Los Angeles Chargers, 2 teams that have been a little bit disappointing this year. Atlanta is 4-8, 5-7 against the spread, 5-7 to the over, coming off a loss 21-16 to the New Orleans Saints. Not a bad loss by any stretch of the imagination there. So that actually gives me a little bit of a boost on the Atlanta side if you have some interest there. The other side of this game, we have the LA Chargers, just 3-9 on the season, 5-7 against the spread. They've actually lost their last 6 games against the spread right now. So I think that the books are a little bit higher on this team, and the public has been backing them. So the public's a little bit higher on this team than they actually should be here. They are 7-5 to the over, though, with most of those over games coming recently, although the last couple they have gone under. They just got blown out the last game by the New England Patriots, 45 to nothing. It was a horrendous showing for the Los Angeles Chargers here. But when I do my numbers and when I do the power rating, I get a number of 2.5. So 2.5 is what they're offering on both DraftKings and FanDuel right now. So I'm basically right on market with this number. Really nothing here for me to bet on. So I'm going to just take a pass on this game. If I had to choose a side, if we're in one of those pools where you pick things, I feel more comfortable with the Falcons because that was, even though they lost to the Saints, 21-16 loss to the Saints is nothing to be ashamed of. A 45-0 loss to the New England Patriots is definitely something to be ashamed of for the Chargers. And the last game we're going to talk about here is actually those same New Orleans Saints we just mentioned going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. New Orleans is 10-2. They are 7-5 against the spread, 7-5 to the over. The last 5 games they have played, though, 7-5 to the over, but the last 5 games have been the 5 games that have gone under. So 7 straight overs to start the year for them, 5 straight unders recently. They're coming off a 21-16 win over Atlanta. They won, they covered, and they played to the under in that game, something that's becoming a theme for them with Taysom Hill as their quarterback. The other side of this game with the Philadelphia Eagles, 3-8-1 is their record, 4-8 against the spread, 4-8 to the over. The last 6 games they have played have all gone to the under. They're coming off a loss 30-16 to the Green Bay Packers here. When I look at my number in this game, I actually have New Orleans -10. Now, we talked about it. 3 games in a row, I said, I am about a field goal higher on the Saints than I think the market is. We're seeing another about 3.5 points in this game as well. And so far, being 3 points better than the market on the Saints has led me to a 3-0 record under Taysom Hill as their quarterback. So I'm going to ride it again. I mean, we're getting this number at under 7. I have this number at 10. We talked about another number earlier. I forget what the game was where we were talking about the number being 9. Oh, Green Bay. So Green Bay, the number is 7.5, and my number is 9.5. So we don't really cross any key numbers there. Right now, my number is 10, and this number is 6.5. So we're crossing that key number of 7. We have 3.5 points of value in this game. I like the Saints a lot here. Again, 3-0 on the Saints the last 3 weeks. They have won and covered in each of those games, and I see no reason why they can't do it again here. So I'm going to go back on the Saints. A couple things I wanted to add in. This is a crazy week in the NFL with all the COVID stuff and games having to get moved and everything else. We have 2 Monday night football games and a Tuesday night football game here. Washington, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Buffalo are all involved in those games. And that is the Sunday night football game and one of the 4 o'clock games for this week that we didn't talk about. The other game that we didn't talk about is Dallas against Cincinnati. I have a number on that game from FanDuel of -3.5. My number on that game is actually minus. They have Dallas being favored by 3.5. I actually have Cincinnati being favored in that game. I do not feel comfortable about taking Cincinnati as a favorite, though. And I also don't really like Dallas, basically with the way that things have been going for them, since the Dak injury. So no matter what happens there, I'm probably not going to have a bet on that game anyway. But as always, like I tell you guys, if there's any games we don't talk about here because the numbers weren't out yet or we're waiting on information, we talk about these numbers all week long over on FTN Bets. So head over to FTN Bets, use promo code Benny. You'll get 10% off for signing up for any of our packages over there. And you'll get all of our experts and all of the opinions, as well as everybody in the bet tracker. Every bet that we make goes in the bet tracker so you guys can see how we're doing on the season against the spread, prop bets, teasers. It's all broken down in there for you for every sport too. NFL, the NCAA package is firing off right now. The NBA package is getting ready to fire up. The MMA guys had a good weekend. The soccer guys had a great week in Champions League as well. So if you're looking to get some gambling stuff down, you're looking to get some information, there are tons of things, tons of tools, tons of people who you can utilize as resources over at FTN Bets. So please make sure to get your way over there. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, I'll be back again next week for week 15 with an early look at those lines. This is Benny Ricciardi with FTN Bets signing off for the FTN Network.